Now tell me, were you terrified at the cinema around about 60 years ago when you went to see this big epic production? Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here in the very heart of London. Halloween may have gone, but this of course was one of the biggest blockbuster movies of that particular era, and it's 60 years ago. Can you imagine? 60 years ago since this movie came out. We're talking about, of course, the brilliant Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It starred the Hollywood stalwarts Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, can you imagine? And basically the story goes, according to people that I've interviewed as well, that Joan actually found the script, liked it, took it along to Bette, who was appearing in an off-Broadway production, and persuaded her to sign on. Betty's version of events obviously are totally different, as one can imagine, with superstar icons of that day. Of course, the production was fraught with problems, all about star billing, who got what, the better lines, the better lighting. Bette, of course, created that terrible, infamous look of Baby Jane Hudson. Some people might say you look a little bit like her yourself, Neil, first thing in the morning when you're broadcasting. You might be right, you know. But it's interesting here because it's really sort of stood the test of time. It's still one of the biggest grossing movies for Warner Brothers Home Rental, and that is because people are still streaming the movie today. Apparently they found it incredibly terrifying. Not quite sure if it's terrifying or not. It's very, very well acted. There were, of course, plans to make a follow-up, Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, with the same two cast members. But apparently Joan didn't take too kindly to Bette's antics on set and suddenly had an illness, or as Bette pointed out, a Hollywood illness that basically was her own doing. Joan retorted back, "Yes, I'm ill because I'm sick to death of the sight of Miss Davis." If you've read the book The Divine Feud, which is all about the background towards this brilliant movie, it really does give you a bigger insight when you're watching it. And as I say, it's interesting, isn't it, in this brand new century, the 21st century, which was 20 years in now, that these stars from yesteryear could simply make a movie that would stand the test of time. The director, Robert Aldridge, apparently created himself an ulcer working with these two legends, as you can imagine, because they really would not give up on the antics. Even after the movie was put out and doing incredibly well at the box office, they refused to sort of participate in joint publicity productions, basically Joan claiming that she was an actress and Bette was a movie star. I mean, you know, having worked with people like this before, I can fully understand the problems that Mr. Aldridge would have had. It's a shame they never made a movie together after this, but apparently they couldn't reconcile their differences, and so we're just left with this wonderful one-off film. But as I say, were you scared all of those years ago? Did you see it at the cinema first time around? And if not the cinema, when were you very first aware of this brilliant gothic horror, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Of course, Joan went on to spectacular success, as did Bette in various movies themselves. Most famously, of course, for Joan, she appeared for the director William Castle, another brilliant horror goth type person who put her in straitjacket and had her going around cinemas throwing out fake axes into the audiences, all to get publicity for that movie. Joan apparently lamented in her book, My Own Story, well, you know, is this really what I would come to? But she continued to want to work, and these were the movies that were simply being offered. If you haven't watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane yet, do have a look at some of the clips for free, and I believe there is a full version as ever for free on YouTube. Love to know your thoughts to this particular story as ever in the comments below. And finally, don't be too frightened. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.